Once humans lived in great cities, full of music, magic, and laughter. But those days were gone. For over 200 years, the elves ruled the world, their armies unmatched, their magic feared. They called themselves the Firstborn, and to them, humans were nothing more than tools, workers, soldiers, slaves. Cale Grayson stood at the edge of the smoking village, his fists clenched and jaw tight. The wind carried the scent of ash and blood. Behind him, the huts were still burning. Another punishment raid. Another reminder that humans had no rights, only orders to follow. He kicked a broken wooden bucket aside, revealing something strange buried beneath the dirt. It looked like a metal shard, but it hummed softly, as if alive. Curious, Cale dug it out with his bare hands. It was warm, smooth, and pulsing with golden light. Symbols glowed faintly on its surface, symbols he didn't recognize. "What are you?" he whispered, brushing soot from the surface. As he held it, a strange warmth spread through his arm. For a brief second he saw flashes, an ancient battlefield, a blade made of light, and a voice whispering in an old tongue. Then it was gone. Cale slipped the shard into a hidden pouch beneath his cloak. He didn't know what it was, but his instincts screamed, "Hide it." He had no magic, no special blood, just calloused hands, sharp eyes, and a mind used to surviving. A shout pulled him back. A group of survivors huddled near the broken well. Children cried. The elder, Lisa, limped forward. "They'll come back, Cale," she warned, her voice hoarse. "They always do." Cale nodded. "Not if we make them think this village is dead." He didn't say what he really thought. "Not if we make them regret it." That night, he met with the others in the underground stone chamber, what remained of the human resistance. Only a dozen strong, they were tired, angry, and full of silent hope. He showed them the shard. "I found this in the ashes. It's not normal." "The old smith," Harvin gasped. "That's a piece of the heart flame. They said it was destroyed during the First War." Cale frowned. "What does it do?" "If it's truly part of the heart flame," Harvin said slowly, "then you found the key to the Sunbreaker blade, the only weapon that ever wounded an Elven king." Silence fell. Then Cale spoke, his voice calm but burning with fire. "Then maybe it's time we stop hiding. Maybe it's time the elves remember what it means to fear." Outside, the sky darkened. Thunder rolled far in the distance, and deep in the Elven capital, a princess dreamed of fire, steel, and a human warrior with eyes like a storm. Far away from the burned human village, the Elven capital, Solarian, stood tall and proud. Its white towers shimmered like glass, rising high above silver rivers and glowing gardens. Here everything was beautiful and cold. No one spoke loudly. No one laughed without permission. The elves called it peace, but not everyone agreed. Princess Aelira stood at the edge of her balcony, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. Her long silver hair blew gently in the wind, but her thoughts were stormy. Below her, nobles danced and drank in celebration. Another human traitor had been captured. Another village punished. To most elves, it was justice. To her, it felt like cruelty. "We were once protectors," she muttered to herself. "Now we rule through fear." Her brother, Prince Dalaran, entered the room without knocking. He wore armor polished to a shine and a crown of moonsteel on his brow. "You look troubled," he said. Aelira didn't turn to him. "I read the report. That village had children. Old people. Why burn it?" "Because they hid rebels," he replied coldly. "We gave them a chance. They refused peace." "No," she said softly. "They refused chains." Thalarin's voice grew sharp. "You sound like a sympathizer. Be careful, sister." "I'm not a traitor," Aelira replied, turning to face him. "But I'm tired of pretending we're better when we act like monsters." Thalarin studied her for a long moment. Then, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, he said, "Then perhaps it's time you saw the truth yourself." The next morning, Aelira's carriage rolled through the outer lands toward the human provinces. She was told it was for education. But she knew it was exile. Her brother didn't like questions. She was to observe the slave labor camps and return obedient, silent. The roads were dusty, the forests darker. Guards rode beside her, tall, cold warriors with green cloaks and sharp stares. But Aelira's eyes stayed fixed on the villages they passed. People worked in silence. No laughter, no songs, just fear. At dusk, the convoy stopped near a valley. Aelira stepped out for fresh air, her silk boots crunching on dry leaves. That's when it happened. A sharp whistle, then a blast. Smoke exploded in front of a lit wagon. Arrows flew from the trees. Human rebels. Chaos followed. Elven guards fell quickly, trapped by nets and hit with firebombs. Aelira tried to call out, but strong arms grabbed her from behind. "Don't scream," a voice whispered in her ear. "We're not here to kill you." She turned and saw a tall human in a dark cloak, his eyes like storm clouds, his jaw clenched. He looked nothing like the dirty, broken human she had been shown in books. He looked like a warrior. "Why take me?" she demanded. He stared at her for a moment. "Because you're the only thing they care about." Then the rebels vanished into the woods, carrying the elven princess with them, leaving only silence behind. The forest was quiet, but the silence was full of tension. Princess Aelira sat on a large stone inside a small cave. Her silver dress was torn, her hair messy, and her hands tied, not with ropes, but with soft leather straps. Her guards were dead. Her world had changed in an instant. She was now a prisoner of the very people she had once watched from her palace windows. She glanced at her captors. They were nothing like what the palace scrolls had described. These humans weren't wild or foolish. They were calm, clever, and strong. They moved like trained soldiers, speaking in low voices and planning every move. The one who had taken her, the tall man with stormy eyes, stood near the fire, sharpening a small blade. He hadn't spoken much since the ambush, but his presence was heavy, like thunder waiting to strike. "Do you have a name?" Aelira asked, her voice steady despite her fear. He looked up. "Kale," he said simply. "Why am I still alive, Kale?" "You're worth more alive," he replied without emotion. "To both sides." Aelira frowned. "If you think my brother will trade for me, you're wrong. He'll burn the forest just to make a point." Kale gave a bitter smile. "Then maybe we should make our point first." Hours passed. Kale brought her water and bread, rough but fresh. She expected hate in his eyes, maybe anger. Instead he looked tired, not weak, but worn like someone who had carried pain for too long. "Why do you hate us?" she asked quietly. Kale didn't answer at first. He stared into the fire. "When I was 10, elven soldiers came to my village. They said we were hiding rebels. We weren't. They burned the fields. Took my mother. I never saw her again." Aelira's heart tightened. She had heard reports like this before, called them necessary actions in court meetings. But now it had a face. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Kale turned to her surprised. "You're the first elf who's ever said that." They sat in silence, two worlds divided by history and blood. Later that night, Kale spoke to the other rebels. Some wanted to send a message to the elven capital. Others wanted to use the princess as a shield when they attacked a guard post. But Kale shook his head. "No harm comes to her," he said firmly. "She's a prisoner, not a target." One rebel woman, tall and fierce, growled, "She's one of them." Kale met her gaze. "Maybe. But maybe she's also the first to listen." Inside the cave, Aelira closed her eyes. She wasn't sure who the enemy was anymore, or what her duty truly meant. And Kale? He didn't know it yet, but something in his heart had begun to shift. Not in hate, but in hope. The moon rose high over the forest, casting silver light through the trees. In the clearing near the rebel camp, the fire had burned low. Most of the fighters were asleep, scattered on blankets and bedrolls. But two people remained awake. Kale sat by the fire, sharpening his blade slowly. Across from him, Princess Aelira leaned against a tree, her arms no longer tied. Her eyes were fixed on the sky, but her thoughts were heavy. "You could have run," Kale said without looking at her. "I thought about it," she replied, voice soft. "But I don't know the forest, and honestly, I'm not sure where I'd even go." Kale nodded, smart answer. Aelira looked at him carefully. "You're not like the others." He gave a small smile. "Neither are you." A silence settled between them. It wasn't cold, but thoughtful, like the quiet between two people who've seen too much. "May I ask something?" she said after a while. Kale nodded. "That shard you carry, the one I saw yesterday, when you thought no one was watching, where did you find it?" Kale's fingers froze for a second. Then he reached into his cloak and pulled out the glowing metal piece. It shimmered faintly in the moonlight. "I found it in the ruins after an elven raid, buried under ashen stone. It called to me." Aelira stepped closer, her eyes wide. "I know this symbol," she whispered, tracing the glowing mark. "It's part of the Sunbreaker blade." Kale raised an eyebrow. "You know of it?" "It's a legend in Elven history, the only weapon made by both elves and humans. Long ago, during the First War, a human king used it to wound an elven lord. After that, the blade was broken and hidden." "And you're telling me," Kale said slowly, "that this is real?" Aelira nodded. "Yes, and very dangerous." Kale's expression turned serious. "Why?" "Because the Elven High Council would rather destroy half the world than let a human hold it again." Kale stared at the shard, feeling its soft hum in his fingers. "Then I'll need to keep it close," he said quietly. Aelira looked at him. "You can't fight them alone." "I'm not alone," Kale replied. "Not anymore." Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world around them faded. No titles, no past, just two people searching for something bigger than revenge or duty. Suddenly, a rustle came from the woods. Both reached for their weapons, but it was only a fox slipping between the trees. Aelira let out a breath. "This place is full of surprises." Kale chuckled. "So are you." That night, neither of them slept much, and though they didn't speak again, something had changed. A quiet understanding had formed, like the first spark before a fire. But far away, in the marble halls of Solarian, Aelira's brother read a message that chilled his heart. "The princess lives, and she's with the humans." The marble floor of the royal war chamber echoed under sharp elven boots. Prince Thalarin, heir to the throne of Solarian, stood at the edge of a long map table, fists clenched, eyes glowing with quiet fury. A scout knelt before him, shaking. "She is alive, my lord," the scout said. "Princess Aelira was taken by humans. We followed the trail for 3 days, then lost it in the hills." "Was she harmed?" Thalarin asked through clenched teeth. "No, my lord. Not yet. She travels with them freely now." The silence in the room was heavier than stone. Thalarin's voice was soft but deadly. "Then she is no longer just my sister. She is a threat." In the rebel camp deep within the forest, Aelira sat beside Kale, reading an old journal. The Sunbreaker shard lay beside them, glowing gently in the fading light. They had grown closer, talking late into the nights, sharing thoughts they had never dared speak before. But their peace wouldn't last. That morning, smoke rose in the distance. A village, burning. Kale and the rebels rushed to the ridge. From there, they saw what the elves had done. Homes were in flames. Bodies lay in the fields. A warning from Solarian. "They knew you were here," Kale said, his jaw tight. "They're sending a message." Aelira's face was pale. "This isn't a search. This is punishment." She knew her brother well. He wasn't trying to rescue her. He was trying to erase the shame, to make sure no one believed she had joined the humans willingly. The rebels gathered in a circle. Their leader, a fierce woman named Mira, spoke with fire in her voice. "No more running," she said. "They want war? We give it to them." Kale shook his head. "Not like this. We fight smart. We don't match their magic, we outthink it. Mira frowned. You have a better idea. Kale held up the shard. I do. That night, the rebels set a trap. They lured the Elven scouts with false tracks, leading them into narrow canyons where escape was impossible. As the elves entered, firebombs fell from hidden ledges. Rocks tumbled, nets dropped from trees, screams filled the air. Kale fought like a storm, quick, sharp, unbreakable. By his side, Aelira used a stolen elven wand to protect the wounded, her heart torn with guilt and courage. In the end, the ambush worked. The elves retreated, humiliated. But one soldier escaped, and he carried a message for Prince Thalarin. The humans fight like demons. The princess fights with them. Back in Salarian, Thalarin's rage boiled. He called for his assassin, silent, deadly, loyal only to the crown. Find them, the prince said. Kill the human leader, and bring my sister back, or don't come back at all. Far away under the stars, Kale and Aelira sat quietly, watching the flames of their campfire. They didn't know death was already on its way. But they were ready. The morning came quiet and cool. Dew rested on the grass, and pink blossoms fell gently from the trees above the rebel camp. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Kale stood near the edge of the forest, sharpening his sword, while Aelira watched him from a distance. She held a small flower in her hand, lost in thought. The past few days had changed her. She no longer saw the humans as weak or wild. She saw them as survivors, strong in ways the elves had forgotten. Kale walked over and sat beside her. You haven't spoken much today, he said. Aelira looked at him. I was just thinking how strange it is to feel safe here in the heart of my enemies. Kale gave a small smile. Maybe we're not enemies anymore. She smiled too. But their peace shattered in the next breath. A sharp snap echoed through the trees, then a whistling sound. Kale turned just in time to push Aelira aside. A dagger flew past them and struck the tree behind her. Get down, he shouted, drawing his blade. From the shadows, a figure appeared, tall, cloaked, and silent. The assassin, sent by Prince Thalarin. His mask was bone-white, his weapons poisoned. Kale rushed forward, steel clashing against curved elven daggers. The assassin moved like smoke, fast, graceful, deadly. The rebels tried to help, but the killer was too quick. Aelira grabbed a wand from the supplies and sent a flash of light toward the assassin's eyes. He hissed and turned, giving Kale a chance to strike, but not fast enough. The assassin's blade sliced across Kale's side. He fell to one knee, blood pouring through his shirt. Kale. Aelira cried, running to him. Don't let him take you, Kale said through clenched teeth. The assassin moved in again, but Aelira stood in front of Kale, arms raised. Her eyes glowed softly. Stop, she shouted, her voice shaking the trees. You will not harm him. The magic that burst from her hands was wild and bright. Golden vines of light wrapped around the assassin's arms, forcing him back. He stumbled, then vanished into the forest. Aelira dropped beside Kale, hands glowing with healing energy. Elven healing magic was forbidden to use on humans, but she didn't care. Stay with me, she whispered. Kale's breathing slowed. The wound began to close. Her magic worked, but at a cost. She could feel her strength slipping. When the rebels found them minutes later, both were on the ground, her hands still holding his, their faces calm despite the pain. She healed him. Mira whispered in disbelief. She saved him. That night, word spread through the camp. The elven princess had used her own power to protect a human warrior. And something more powerful than magic was now binding their fates. Smoke rose into the morning sky, but it was not from destruction. It was from the fires of a forge. Deep in the mountains, hidden within ancient ruins older than even elven memory, Kale stood before a blazing furnace. The Sunbreaker shard rested on a stone table, glowing stronger than ever before. The ruins whispered with the voices of forgotten kings, human leaders who once challenged the elves in the First War. Their spirits stirred, sensing the time had come again. Aelira stood beside him, pale from the strain of the healing magic she had used days earlier. Yet her eyes were full of determination. "This place," she said softly, "was once a throne hall, a center of human power." Cale nodded, "And it will be again." With help from Harvin, the rebel blacksmith, Cale placed the shard into a mold. The hammer rose, sparks flew. The air grew thick with energy. Magic pulsed through every blow. Piece by piece, the Sunbreaker blade was reborn, not as it once was, but as a weapon shaped by pain, love, and hope. When the final blow was struck, the blade shone like the dawn, gold and silver intertwined along its edge. The rebels stared in awe. Even Aelira, daughter of the Elven Highblood, could not look away. Cale held the blade high. "This isn't just a weapon," he said. "It's a promise. We will not be slaves. We will not kneel. The elves will remember the strength of mankind." Cheers rose across the camp. Messages were sent to hidden human tribes and villages. They came in small groups, carrying bows, axes, and hope. Farmers, hunters, old warriors, all ready to stand. The army of humans, once scattered, now marched together. Their banner, a simple sun on black cloth, rising behind a broken crown. Aelira stayed near Cale, guiding him through Elven maps and battle knowledge. Her presence brought questions, but no one doubted her anymore. She had saved Cale's life, and perhaps more importantly, she had chosen the truth over her throne. News came from a scout. Prince Thalarin's army was marching north, a force of thousands with fire mages and beast riders. They would reach the ruined city of Durethil in 3 days. Cale looked over the map. "That's where we stopped them." "Durethil?" Mira asked. "It's cursed." "No," Cale said. "It's where we show them that humans don't break, we burn brighter." Aelira stepped forward. "I'll go with you." Cale turned to her, surprised. "They'll see you as a traitor." "Let them," she said. "I've made my choice." As the humans marched toward their final stand, hope and fear walked beside them. The elves came to crush what they saw as a spark. But they didn't know the spark had become a flame. And in the hands of a once-forgotten warrior, the last ember of freedom was ready to rise. The sky over Durethil was dark with storm clouds. The ancient city, once full of life, now stood as broken stone in silence. But today, it would become the battlefield where two worlds would collide, one trying to hold on to power, the other rising to claim its place. Cale stood on the high wall, his armor dull but strong, the Sunbreaker blade glowing at his side. Around him stood farmers turned fighters, rebels, and forgotten warriors, all united under a single cause: freedom. Across the field, the Elven army gathered in lines of perfect order, thousands of silver-cloaked soldiers, banners fluttering, beast riders growling at the front. At their head rode Prince Thalarin, his eyes cold and full of rage. And beside him, in chains, was Aelira. She had been captured the night before, ambushed while delivering a message to the last human outpost. Cale had found the note she left behind. "Don't come for me. Finish what we started." But Cale would not leave her behind. He raised the Sunbreaker, and the army moved. They didn't march, they ran, not for blood, but for a future. Battle exploded like thunder. Fire lit the sky. Humans fought with courage and cleverness, setting traps, using terrain, striking fast and hard. Elves used magic and speed, but they were not ready for the humans' fury. Cale cut through the lines, blade glowing with every strike. He fought his way toward the center, toward Thalarin and Aelira. Thalarin stepped down from his beast, drawing a long silver sword. "You should have stayed in your hole, human." Cale didn't speak. He only attacked. Steel met steel. Sparks flew. Their blades danced under the storm. Thalarin was fast, trained for centuries, but Cale had something stronger: purpose and the will to protect. Nearby, Aelira struggled with her chains, shouting for them to stop. Then, using a sharp stone, she cut through the rope around her wrists. Her magic was weak, but her heart was stronger. She ran between them just as Thalarin raised his sword for the final blow. "Stop!" she cried. Thalarin hesitated, and that was his mistake. Cale knocked the blade from his hands, forcing the prince to his knees. Everyone went quiet. But Cale did not strike. He lowered the Sunbreaker. "We're not like you," he said. "We don't kill the helpless." Aelira stood beside him, placing her hand on his. "This is how peace begins." All around them, elves and humans dropped their weapons. Eyes met. Wounds bolt. But for the first time, the war paused. Later, Cale and Aelira stood on the same wall where it began, looking out at the sunrise. No crown on her head. No sword in his hand. Just two hearts, finally free. The war was not over, but the chains had been broken. And that was enough to begin again.